If a picture tells 1,000 words, the images outside food banks all over America could write a novel on need.
Now, due to the virus, the money is not there.
It's an ongoing pandemic putting a crisis into focus. In Miami, people waiting online for hours.
If it weren't for these sites, would you be able to get food on the table?
Not really.
As Americans cry out for help and the pandemic grinds on, in Washington, there's new hope for another round of economic relief. One bipartisan proposal that is gaining support in the Senate would be worth about $900 billion and include more supplemental employment payments as well as aid for businesses and local governments, but no direct stimulus like the $1,200 checks that went out months ago. Joining me now is Bishop William Barber, co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign and author of We Are Called to Be a Movement. Thank you, Bishop Barber, for talking to me this morning. I read your op-ed in The Nation. It was compelling. It was moving. It was an open letter to a member of the Senate. Just tell our audience, what was your motivation in writing that open letter, and what were you hoping to get Senator Manchin as well as other senators right now to understand?
Well, Jason, I know, for instance, one family that's lost 11 members since March, one young 18-year-old lady. Jesus. And the reality is we've been talking to the Biden-Harris transition team ever since the election. As they promised, tomorrow we're releasing a 14-point moral justice policy priorities, first 100 days for the healing of the nation. But here's the ugliness. Corporations have gotten everything they wanted, Jason. Billionaires have made billions in the midst of COVID. But poor and low-income people and workers have been treated by McConnell and Republicans like they aren't essential, but they are expendable. And to suggest that this compromise is a good thing is a bad thing. It's an immoral thing. It may be what they're going to do, but we can't celebrate it like it's so great. The fact of the matter is, it's far less than what's necessary. It doesn't deal with the issues. People who are dying, we keep saying people who are dying, but many of the people who are dying, it's not just that people are dying, it's poor and low wealth people are dying. In all races, black, white, brown, indigenous, it's low income, low wealth people who are dying. And they have watched corporations get everything. And when it comes to poor and low wealth people, the cry of scarcity. Now, I want you to imagine, this is what I was trying to say to the senator. Imagine that this disease was sweeping through and killing U.S. senators like it's killing poor and low wealth people. And ask yourself a question, America, if the response would be so piecemeal and underfunded, and you can't. There would be no compromise. There would be no centrist position. They would be doing everything they could to stop that. And that's what makes this so damnable. The people who are getting hurt the most are the people working the hardest to keep the country alive. They were not paid enough before to have savings of the COVID. They lacked paid sick medical leave and health insurance before COVID. They lacked access to unemployment before COVID, and they lacked safe working conditions before COVID. And after COVID, they are being called essential on the one hand, but being treated like expendable on the other, and that's damnable. And it's
Bishop, I want to show you a stat right now of where COVID relief money has gone so far. And you can see in this stat that, a lot more money has gone to business than has gone to individuals and families or even government agencies, which could include public hospitals, police officers, emergency techs, and everything else like that. From a moral standpoint, what do these numbers, they always say that your bank account shows your values. What does this graphic show us about the moral standing of the United States government right now?
And about specifically McConnell, Trump, and Republican. I never separate the two. It shows us clearly the love of money is the root of all evil. It shows us that that we would rather put one person on the Supreme Court than protect thousands of people from being placed in caskets and on breathing machines. And it's even worse than that graph, Jason. We know 84% of all the money in the first CARES Act went to corporations. It didn't go to the least of those that needed the most. But McConnell, in this new proposal, if you go to the bottom, is pushing for a liability shield for businesses to protect them against lawsuits from poor and low-wage workers who become infected because the business didn't protect them. That's criminal. When you want to force people to work in COVID-infested workplaces and then give the corporation the ability to be protected from suit because they didn't protect the people.
You know, Bishop, when I look at the numbers and you see that Jared Kushner, Tom Brady, and Kanye West can get hundreds of millions of dollars for their businesses, but the local person can't get anything, it's a reminder of sort of the failings of this country. But here's a question. I think you're sort of uniquely capable of answering this. There are moral men and women in this, even on the Republican side. I would say Mitt Romney seems like a moral, God-fearing man. But they fundamentally believe that charity should only come from individuals and not from the government. How do we break people out of that belief system? People who believe that people are in need and that you have an individual moral obligation to care for others, but that should not come from the government. Is there any way to break that mindset or that ideology?
Well, that's not really being moral then. It's certainly not being biblical because the biblical morality says you care for your neighbor. It says that the biblical morality, actually in the Bible, Isaiah 10, it says, woe unto those who legislate evil and rob the poor of their rights. There's no way you can say I care about somebody individually, but then I don't care about changing the structures that are hurting people corporately. So for instance, Romney, he's now saying there's this centrist group. These are not centrist positions. First of all, the $900 billion is where McConnell was months ago. He's not lost anything. These are not centrist positions. It's not compromise, it's capitulation. Now, that may be the best they do, but we must demand they do more. We must demand they do not have this liability shield for businesses. And what we understand, the true moral position would be equitable treatment, care, vaccines, resources for safe schools, food security, stimulus checks, child income credit, family income credit, disability income credits, direct payments for poor and low-income people and frontline essential workers, canceling rent, moratoriums on evictions and foreclosures, and ensuring safe homes for the unhoused. If you do not do that, all of this individualistic morality is contrary to the Bible. And guess what, Jay? It's contrary to the Constitution, because the Constitution says we are to establish justice. And then the last part of it in those first four moral principles say we are to work for the common defense, and promote not individual welfare, but the general welfare. And that's the only way you can ensure domestic tranquility.
Bishop, domestic tranquility is something that this country has been lacking, certainly when it comes to poor people all along. Thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. This is Bishop William Barber. Thank you so much.
God bless you, sir.